let's say the guest walks in the door and you guys start chopping it up, you're talking, and then are you guys the types to be like, wait, save it for the pod? Or do you meticulously plan like what you want to ask and talk to people about?
So we go a little bit of both ways. We'll have stuff, like we have some stuff for you today, but like most of the time you just kind of feel into the conversation because you do want people to feel welcome. And what we're doing is trying to open up with people and bring that sense of vulnerability. So normally we'll just like, somebody gets to the house and we just chill for like half an hour. JP will eventually start setting up as we continue to talk, but kind of just get everybody into place, let the conversation go. I think at first we kind of were like, wait, but now it's kind of just like trusting that like if we're having a really good conversation prior to the podcast rolling, once the podcast starts rolling, it's just going to get better, you know?
Yeah, like I think we realized very quickly that we couldn't just kind of like dive in, and that kind of made people a lot more nervous. Was for them to be like, it was for us to be like immediately like, okay, so like how vulnerable do you want to get right now, or whatever, or who hurt you, or whatever it was that we would like start the podcast with, and then we just realized like, yeah, we got to kind of like
roll into
people. Yeah, like it's different because we've had people who we were like super close with come on and just, you know, and we didn't have to like warm them up. But we've also had people like, there are people who we had as guests who like I met them that day, and same for you.
Yeah, like this isn't unusual for us to just like, this is the first time we're meeting in person. All right, we're sitting down for a podcast.
Yeah. It's like to a certain point, it's kind of like the people business. You know what I mean? Like you get to connect with people one-to-one or two-on-one or whatever in this kind of podcast atmosphere. And then you end up, you know, becoming closer and, you know, whether it's, you know, potential partnerships or potential like relationship development, you know, I don't want to like transactionify it, but if you do have a podcast platform, it makes it easier to, you know, set up that kind of like you're forced to sit across the table from that person for an hour, you know, and like organically relationships are going to be built. So that's why I say for entrepreneurs, the best thing that they can do is start a podcast. The podcast is like, it's like the new business card, you know, like hey, come on my podcast. And then obviously that person's going to be in your affiliate network. You're going to be able to build together. And then, you know, it's like music artists. They they still do a collabo. Rappers would do a collabo.
They do a collabo.
Yeah. All right. But it's to expose the other person to the other person's audience. So
of course. No, I think we've learned that like very quickly. And it's funny because it's like, I feel like the more and more that we do this, even like we were talking about this on the drive here, where it's just like the more and more we do this, we've done so much with this podcast. And then like, but then there's just days where you feel like we haven't done anything. We haven't, who are we networking with? Like, are we helping anybody with this? And then you kind of have to come back to like a base point of, no, that's the story like that I'm telling myself that I haven't like impacted people, or that this podcast doesn't matter or whatever it might be. But then you realize like, no, we're building something here. Like, and you don't want to like pat yourself on the back, but you also want to be like, there is a transaction of it that they're coming on your podcast, they get to tell their story, and you're learning their experience.
And 9 times out of 10, they haven't had this kind of pro quality video content before. So, you know, remember that you're offering them that value too. Like, even if they're like a high level entrepreneur, you know, 9 times out of 10, they haven't really had that like pro quality video. So you're giving them a gift, not only to let them share their story, but also, you know, that content is something that's extremely valuable to them, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a win-win for everybody. We always thought about like I feel like when we started doing this, we were always like, if we put the right intent into it, and then our intent is to share knowledge with people, but also to like learn stuff for ourselves, like what wrong could come from that?
Yeah. This is what I love. Podcasts. It's my passion, you know? And, you know, to be able to, you know, help others like yourself produce and create, whether it's with the camera tech or, you know, storyboarding, a lot of things like for people's descriptions and helping people, you know, launch their podcast the right way, the way that they can, you know, ultimately do it themselves it's really a passion of mine. And, you know, when you live it, it's all you have, you know?
I mean, it shows in your work, man. Like,
thank you.
We see it. Like, we looked at a few, I told you this on the phone when we first talked, that like we looked at a bunch of other studios, and I'm like, well, you don't even have your work up. I can't even see like what a podcast at your studio looks like. And I feel like you guys do a very good job of showcasing what you're capable of. And
thank you.
and immediately after, I feel like we were nervous about it, but then after we talked to you, we were like, oh, this is going to be fine.
Yeah.
We got this. Yeah.
Whenever I talk to entrepreneurs and content creators, you know, I talk about their content spread and different, you know, buckets of content types. But, you know, for us being a production facility, a production studio, a content creation agency, you know, I really like to create these kind of micro celebrations. So like what you're seeing on our website, yeah, it is like a sample of our work, but also like we end up so close to the talent, to the client, that it's like all these events, all these recording dates, if you think about it, it's once in a lifetime. And, you know, I'm like the biggest hype man. So I feel like even if I'm helping tell your story from behind the camera, I feel like I'm a part of it. And I'm able to feel that way about it. So then I'm able to create a micro celebration, so to speak, you know, because that's sort of what social media is. It's like a window box into a celebration of a moment for the individual.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
So I think before we get like super into it, I just wanted to take a minute and give you some flowers. Initially we had this planned for a guest that we thought was going to elevate and change the podcast. And we actually went out of the way to make sure we found a studio, and you were a great fit and very willing to work with us. And we appreciate that. But as soon as we got all that together, as life and fate will have it, guest canceled, and you so graciously jumped in here. And I do believe that it's still meant for the podcast to grow and change. This is just how it was supposed to happen. And I'm a firm believer that like if you just trust the universe, things are going to happen the way they're supposed to happen. So thank you for being here and joining us on Who Thought We'd Be Here.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
And thank you for hosting us at Is it Q20? Is it Q29?
Q29, yeah, Q29.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was Q29 or Q29.
It's whatever you want to make.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, man. We really appreciate it. I would agree with
jumping in.
I would agree with his sentiment 100% that like this is the way that it's supposed to go. Yeah. And we appreciate you not only opening up the space for us, but also for hopping on here and be willing to have a vulnerable conversation.
The timing is perfect for all of it. So thank you guys. Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So do you want to give just a little background on who you are and what you do here and maybe beyond that?
For sure. Yeah. So, for people who are not familiar with me, my name is Bryce Eckwall. I own Q29 Productions, content creation and podcast studio. My kind of my I help statement, right? I'm on this viral creator mastermind right now where me and my friend Anthony Serino have, and we're kind of like helping content creators build out their content plan on how to go viral. So we were working on our I help statement the other night, and basically I help entrepreneurs and content creators with reels and podcasts, right? But it's a lot deeper than that. And my claim to fame is that I walked up to Daymond John from Shark Tank in a bar, asked him to be on a podcast, and then a year later I was flying with him on a private jet. Mm-hmm. So that moment for me really kind of elevated our studio, and then we ended up having a really amazing entrepreneurship networking speaking event where I was able to interview Daymond from Shark Tank and in front of 300 ticketed entrepreneurs, and that was kind of like a big impact that we were able to have on the community. And since then we've been able to 3-5x our growth here at Q29 and become a multiple six-figure company in what feels like overnight. But me and my business partner Sean and my sister Morgan and our lead social editor Matthew have really created our core values around helping content creators like yourselves and podcasters blow the fuck up.
Yeah. So did you guys have the studio before you had met and had this podcast with Daymond?
So the first podcast that we did with Daymond, when I walked up to him in the bar and asked him to be in the pod, it was in the back of this building. So it was like a small room. It was an audio recording studio that we had kind of turned into the video studio, and we had just started Q29. We had one other podcast client before that. And then it was my buddies, Zach and Tony, who we started their podcast. And it was I think it was the fifth episode, because we were at this bar locally and Daymond walked in and we asked him to be on. And do you want to hear the story?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, of course. We would love to. You don't have to ask, by the way. Yeah, you got this.
So, all right, it's there's so many layers to the story. There's a lot, and I talk about it a lot, to the point where my friends are like, can you stop fucking talking about it? But you never tell a story for the first time. So,
sure.
I mean, Zach and Tony's podcast had like maybe 100 subscribers, like no views. And then we're at this local bar and I was there with Zach, and then Daymond John from Shark Tank walked in, and Zach's like, yo, Bryce, that's Daymond John from Shark Tank. And I was like, no fucking way. Cause at that time, like I was watching Shark Tank every night to go to sleep, like trying to be a better entrepreneur. I was completely obsessed. You know, and you might've seen in a video that I put out, like I even had like rap songs where I like referenced them that I had written and recorded. So he's like, bro, you have to go talk to him. Looking back, I'm like, why the fuck did I have to go talk to him? Why didn't, it's your podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, like it took me like 20, 30 minutes to like get the balls to go up and say what's up. And I basically like rehearsed what I wanted to say to him in my head. I was thinking like, I'm going to say, what am I going to say? I'm going to say, you know, hey, Daymond, like I'm a super fan of your work. You know, like what you've done has helped me, you know, become a better entrepreneur. So I walked up to him and just blacked out and said that. And then he's like, cool, thanks, man. And I was like, all right. I was like, hey, would you ever want to be on a podcast? He's like, where? And I was like, well, we shoot at this like office location out in Hopewell. He's like, no, wouldn't do it. I was like, oh. He's like, maybe I'd do it on Zoom. I was like, wait, but we also have the studio space in Hyde Park. He's like, yeah, Hyde Park. Like, okay, cool. June 7th, 2 p.m. I'll be there. He's like, send your email to this person. I was like, where's my phone? Like, I got to write this shit down.
Yeah.
And then I sent the email, and I didn't really get a response. Actually, the only response I got was, we'll be there. So then I just like, you know, had to start planning from there. I bought new furniture. I curated art for the walls. Like I did all sorts of shit. And then he showed up and he roasted us, and it was hilarious. And at that point, he didn't even really remember that it was me who like walked up to him in the bar. He just knew that like these dudes asked him to be on a pod. But from there, the story gets crazy. But yeah, so it wasn't in this room. It was in the back. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, that's, I feel like how he was looking at it is how we were like approaching the guests that we were going to have on.
Yeah.
That we were like, oh, this is going to be this thing that like changes everything. How did you feel like once that happened? And then how did you, because I know like you've worked on and off with him since then, correct? You still work with him?
Yeah. Yep.
How did you kind of like come back to earth after that?
Yeah, for sure. Like,
because
so,
it's like you think that, oh, that's going to do it. And then like, I'm set. Yeah. How did you deal with like the kind of the up and down of that? It
was definitely ups and downs. So you nailed it. Because look, like I knew that I wanted to work with him, but just because I had him as a guest on a podcast that I produced doesn't mean shit, right? And we had a kind of like semi-viral moment, like multiple millions of views on like a couple of these clips that he did with us. But like, okay, cool, one hit wonder. I had Daymond John on a podcast in our building. Like, what am I gonna do from here? So, like, almost every week for the next year, I just would follow up with them and be like, hey, like, how can I work with you? I'd love to like help you with your podcast. How can I, create content for you guys? And I wouldn't really get a response, but then finally, like, I got a shot, and we ended up, my business partner was working on another shoot at that day that they wanted to book me for in New York. So I took my sister with me. It was the first time that we were going to go shoot for Daymond John, and we went to Manhattan at this cool studio space, and we ended up doing like a content creation session, ad reads, cool storytelling type videos. We did like a ton of videos, and him and I started to really hit a groove, because I'm really into the storytelling part. So that was like kind of the first shot that I got, but it wasn't until a year later. So how did I deal with that? I just rolled with it as much as I could, and then, like I said, followed up a million times until I got a chance to work with them. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people they only see the success of a business or an entrepreneur or a person, and they don't realize the effort and the grind that goes into it. Just because you're successful now doesn't mean that there was this period of time where you were just doing something else and then you decided to do this and it just skyrocketed. Yeah. And it's always important, I think, to just share like that story with people, because you need to know that like, you start somewhere. Everybody starts somewhere, and you just build your way up. And it's a quiet grind for a really long time. And then when you finally hit it, people will think that you've had it this whole time. And like, it's always important to just remind others, like, no, you can have this too. You just have to do the work.
Dude, I couldn't resonate with that more. Like I said, like all of a sudden people see me online, and they see me with like these, famous people, and they think, wow, like these guys blew up overnight, but really like they don't understand the grind that came into it. I mean, dude, less than 10 years ago, I was not this guy. Yeah, I was like,
then you're the perfect guest for this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like one of the things that we always consider when we're bringing somebody on is like, how have you changed, and how do you like deal with yourself every day of like trying to be a better version of that? How do you reconcile with like who you used to be, and how do you like love that person that you were back then, and also understand that you're different now?
It's about to get deep. Liquid death.
It wouldn't be a real podcast without liquid death.
Yeah. So I was bad. Struggled with, drugs, ruined a lot of the relationships that I had. This is, we're talking, less than 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And, I was heading nowhere fast. My license was suspended. Wasn't taking care of myself. And, and although I always believed in this kind of creative element of what I loved to do, which was recording and writing music. So that's my through line. Like I was always creating, using audio workshop software. So I was always really good. I was a self-taught audio engineer for a decade before that. You talked about, it's like a complete 180. So I was grinding that whole time in a sense, but then when we really figured out the idea to create Q29, I went from, using drugs and license suspended and going nowhere fast to literally on a private jet with a Shark Tank celebrity. So there's a little bit of I don't know if it's imposter syndrome, but addiction really just transfers, I feel. So addiction for me really transferred from, drugs to just work. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I've been able to be successful.
Yeah. We're both sober, and I've been at it for 2 years. He's about to hit a year, and I just feel like the one thing, I struggled with drugs and alcohol too. And the drugs, I worked in restaurants my whole life. So I was just around it, and you think it's normal. And I was very good at what I did. I won best bartender in the Hudson Valley. And when you have that around you, everybody just expects you to be that guy all the time. And I got to the point where I was I don't want to be this guy, but how do I make that change? And it's just, I think what addiction really puts you through is what you're talking about, that using it as a through line. I know when I was at my worst, I could make anything happen to get that fix that I needed. Mm-hmm. And if I apply that to anything else, you can't stop me. It's like a superpower, but a lot of people have it used against them. And once you figure out how to tone it to something that's positive, and you can see those little changes over time, it's life-changing,
Yeah. I would also have on top of that, you said that work is your new drug. It's when you quit drugs or alcohol or whatever it is that vice is, that's an external thing. But then kind of thoughts come back that were there, that came from doing the drugs and stuff like that. And you feel oh, well, I've removed myself from that. And then you have to deal with the fact of just getting rid of the external problem wasn't the only issue.
Mm. Yeah, it's internal.
Yeah, exactly.
Everywhere I go,
there's more to it. It's just you remove something that maybe was keeping you from, or that you were hiding from, but then you're am I still the same person because I think like that, but I'm just not doing cocaine anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's they say, everywhere I go, there I am. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, man. It there's a sense of paranoia that I have too, and that's, they say speed kills all deals, or response time, executing at a high level fast. Speed has a lot to do with it, but I think there comes to a point where it's too much. I am fucking paranoid that I'm gonna lose, so I'm just nonstop. I could do this. I could just create and workshop and write and video and record and edit and plan from 8 a.m. to midnight every day. And it becomes physically and emotionally taxing. And then add the relationship development part around it, like with like client acquisition and connecting like with people. It just becomes a lot. So I think it's important for entrepreneurs to kind of like remember that, they can, it's okay to slow down a little bit if you need, because the better person you become is the more value you'll be able to provide for other people. Yeah, for sure.
What are some things that you would suggest for entrepreneurs or just anyone that help you slow down so you can take the time to like refocus on yourself so you can actually put the effort that needs to be put into your work?
Interesting. Yeah. What are some things?
You got any hobbies, habits?
I love cooking.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's finding something where you can really like sink into the moment, I guess. Right. I don't really believe in work-life balance. I feel like in your formative grind years, like you got to like put your all into something and like, do so much volume that you're just undeniably likely to succeed. But like I like to find things that I can periodically, I put myself into a kind of momentary focus. So like when you're brushing your teeth, like are you thinking about brushing your teeth or are you thinking about 1,000 other things that are about to happen throughout your day? So I will just kind of like try to focus on just each tooth and like brush the teeth, because guess what? Like I've planned enough. I've my schedule set for that day. Like what is it? It's not serving me to stress about what's about to happen, even though mental rehearsal plays a big role in, in people's success, like day to day. Do you guys ever like kind of like, I don't know if you want to call it fantasize about like what's about to happen that day? And like play it out in your head a little bit?
In the shower all the time. Yeah. That's why I take cold showers, because it stops it. Like I am very much like the second I wake up, because of addiction, have really set myself into a routine. And if I find myself like falling out of that routine, my ego is just like, you're going to fuck this up and everything's going to crumble. And it's hard for me to get out of that, but I have my things like running, the cold shower. Physical activity, I find, is probably the best and most productive way for me to slow it down. It also is like, he'll get text messages at like 7:30 in the morning that are like long drawn out, because I get my best ideas when I'm running. Like in that sense, like I slow everything that I'm racing about down. And like you said, like I'm not focusing on brushing my teeth, but I'm also not focusing on this run right now. I'm thinking about an idea that I have for the podcast, and I'm going to let that come to me. And I'm going to figure out what is the idea behind all of this that's coming in right now. And it's the only time I have the time to like focus on that, Well said. Yeah. Physical activity is huge. I mean, there's probably some statistics around, working out or running that are linked to a decrease in, like anxiety or depression for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, like I certainly try to stay away from, fantasizing about like how the day is going to go or what's going to happen, solely because of the fact that I feel like deep down, like at a core, it's pretty negative. You know what I mean? And that's something that I've been working on in therapy for years, and when, addiction, all that kind of stuff like that contributed to that. And I feel like it all comes back down to the fact of like, I spent so much of my past worried about the next thing, or if I was going to do this, am I doing the right thing, whatever it was, that like right now I try to bring myself back to the present moment as much as I can, because my default mode so much is what's the next thing that I'm going to fuck up in the future. You know what I mean? So I feel like in that sense, I try to just like limit the expectations, because it's like you want to be open to the opportunities. Like you said, like, even though it may be unlikely, you could be, one day or one opportunity away, walking into a bar with somebody who you idolize, and that could change your life forever, and staying open to that while also not trying to be like, oh, my day needs to go this way, so that then like I'll be on the right track to achieving my dreams or getting this amount of money or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Something that grounds me sometimes is just thinking like, have I ever fucked this up? Like, You know, I'm worrying about if I'm gonna fuck this up. When's the last time I fucked it up? And then what? Like, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? You know, what's the worst that could happen? You get a no, or you do your best to fix whatever problem you created. I think realizing that, like, as entrepreneurs, we're really just problem solvers. You know, and even in our own, you know, day to day, if we're talking about our personal lives, you know, I don't think our lives were meant to be comfortable. You know, I think we got it made as a generation, as a, you know, whatever you call it. You know, even though everyone has their own trauma, you know, everyone has their own personal struggle, and struggle is relative, right? So just because there's people starving in Africa doesn't mean that, like, you know, my stress isn't real, right? It's real.
I think that's something that, like, everybody grew up on, which is the fact of that, like I don't know, but like it was like, what do you have to worry about? Like, there's people starving all around the world, or whatever the metaphor for that is. That it's just like, yeah, but that doesn't necessarily discount the fact that, like, you're just having a tough day mentally today.
Yeah, big T trauma, small T trauma. We talk about that a lot when I'm sitting down with my one of my co-creators, Anthony Serino. He has 1 million followers on TikTok and, like, blew the fuck up doing hypnosis for people, helping them kind of, in the practical sense, defeat any kind of childhood trauma that is plaguing them.
I'm gonna sit down with that guy.
I've actually, like, recently been looking into, like, hypnotherapy and hypnosis and stuff like that. It's super interesting to me.
He's a genius. My buddy
awesome.
is extremely talented. He's one of the most famous online personalities related to hypnosis. But I say that to say, we talk about it a lot, and we talk about thoughts and feelings, and you know, look, when you have a lot of people talk about a negative thought. Why is it negative? It's your perception that makes it negative, right? So just, like, deciding whether or not you're willing to react and have, like, an emotional response to something is really, like, on you as the individual. So you know, thoughts are going to come in. It's just what you do with them that really, you know, dictates what your day or your life has in front of you. So it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Because we're all magnets, and you get what you think about. Like, literally, if you're thinking about struggling, God damn it, you're going to fucking struggle, you know? Like, you have to be thinking about winning if you're going to win. And I feel like a lot of people get lost in that. We were just talking on the way here about mindset and how it's, I won't and I can't. But it, like, you say that you can't do something, but it's, you won't do it. You won't get up to go for the run. You can get up to go for the run. You just won't do it. You can eat clean. You just won't eat clean. And it's when you flip that mentality into I can and I'm going to, because you've done it a few times, it can drastically change your life. And I feel like people just give up so quickly instead of just grind it out for a little bit. You put in all this time and effort into everything else in your life. Put some time and effort into you and working on your mindset, because if you change your thoughts, you can literally change your life. I'm a big Wayne Dyer guy.
You well said, man. You're killing. You're killing it.
Well said. Yeah. I think that something that I struggle with for sure is, like, not letting the negative thought, like, win the day. You know, people always talk about that thing that's like, did you have a bad day, or did you have, like, 20 minutes that didn't go so well, and then you let it rule the whole thing? Because then I think what ends up happening, at least for myself, is that then you beat yourself up that you let something small or something minuscule run your life that day. Because I saw something the other day, and it was talking about how we all get so worked up about how, like a little thing, like your coffee is not hot, or somebody cut you off on the way to work, or whatever it is. But meanwhile, like, you get so worked up about that little thing, and then these big things, like not spending enough time with your family, or not chasing your dreams, or whatever it might be that's considered to be, like, a big thing in your life that most people would consider it to be. And we just kind of let that go by the wayside, because it's easier to get worked up about the small thing because it's right in front of you, versus, like, this big thing that encompasses your life.
Yeah. It's, you know, yeah, it's about the vision, right? People have, you know, like, delusional vision. If you can win with that, delusional vision, you know, like believing in yourself until everybody does. So, you know, that's what I coach on a lot when people walk in the door here, entrepreneurs. It's like they don't really necessarily value themselves enough to want to create content around it. If you think about it, you have to be you have to have some kind of vanity or ego to want to create content. Whether it's like, you know, you just want vanity metrics, like you want to have more followers or likes or views, or, you know, you want to really give a gift to somebody and provide value and educate. But a lot of times people just don't hold enough stock on themselves. So, you know, that's kind of like step one is like, for us, when we're helping people with content creation, I'm like, look, like, why do you want to, you know, be famous, or like, why do you want your podcast to blow up, or why do you want to have views? Once we can kind of answer that why, then that'll inform like your storytelling. That'll inform the way that you know, execute, because let's get fucking real. Like if you want to blow up because you want to be popular, great. That'll inform our decision-making moving forward. Like if this is a moral decision and like you want everything to be really kind of buttoned up and like non-salacious, then that's a different mode too. Like we work with doctors, lawyers, pastors, certain people who have certain ethical codes, you know, and then other times we work with people who are, you know, super like clickbait, political discourse, drama, rage bait, you know. There's an art and a balance to what we do. I know I spun your question into content, but that's I don't know.
It's fine. It's so funny. It's so funny that you say that, because like with what I do in videography, like it's almost like content creation goes very much hand in hand with that. And like I even took a class recently that was just like, you're leaving money on the table if you're not creating, because you can make stuff for yourself, and then that is basically like your version of outreach. You know, like you don't necessarily these days, especially with the way that social media and the internet works, like you don't need to be cold emailing and cold calling people. Like every piece of content that you put out is almost like an advertisement for whatever it is that you do. And what I said to him on the way up here was that like, if I want to make a piece of content, I'm featured in it, or I'm doing something nice for somebody, or I'm trying to help people, like, is that selfish? How do you like, and I understand like you're approaching that with your clients. I'm curious how like you approach that, because you've built just from scrolling through your Instagram and stuff like that, a pretty awesome personal brand. And I'm sure that some of it has benefited from the fact of you being in rooms with these people who are more successful than you and help you maybe have credibility, or also give you confidence to do better. How do you deal with that idea of like giving back to people and building that personal brand, while also maintaining the fact that like, just because I'm featured in this, that doesn't make me selfish, you know? Or like I saw something recently that was saying how it's just like, you're not afraid of building that business or posting that piece of content. You are afraid of being seen at the next level.
Yeah. That's deep, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So look,
that's what this podcast is for, man.
How did we get here?
Yeah. Right.
Who knew we'd be here? Who thought we'd be here?
That's the sequel to our podcast. How'd we get here?
We're coining terms out here.
Yeah.
Okay. So look, like, you know, when we started this thing off, I was talking to you about how I walked up to Daymond from Shark Tank in a bar. Now here's the thing. Our business was not doing that much revenue. And then I started sharing my story about working with and acquiring the client of Shark Tank, Daymond. I say that to say, you know, I was able to create a multiple six-figure business off of sharing that story because it resonated with people semi-locally, and I wasn't trying to sell anything. So that's step one. Like, you have to be confident enough to share your story and believe in yourself enough that people are going to want to hear it, and potentially it can potentially resonate with people. Remember, building a multiple six-figure business off of not going viral at all. Like, there was nothing viral about me talking about working with the Shark Tank guy, but I continued to double down on that because I knew it was really cool, and I thought it was a really great element of our story and how I could continue to make an impact. But so people would say, "Wow, Bryce, like, can you stop fucking talking about working with the guy from Shark Tank? Like, is it your only whole personality?" But the point is, I knew that I was a vessel or a shuttle for helping people reach their goal. And that's how I was able to not feel like this is just a selfish act, even though I caught heat for doing it and putting out certain content that I wasn't supposed to. And it wasn't really kosher when I was sharing the story about working with Daymond. So what I'm saying is, it's not me patting myself on my own back to say like I needed to be able to reach more people in order to help them. And people call me every day. They're like, Bryce, I want to start a podcast. Well, now listen, when we have more success, then I'm able to help more people. So even if you're paying me for a service, like I'm gonna put my best foot forward and to help you reach your goal. And basically, my success can equal the success for people around me. So it's not an entirely selfless act to be self-promotional and share your story, but I had to believe that I could help people. And once I decided that I was capable of helping others reach their goal, whether it's content creation or business development or marketing, then I was like, okay, cool. Like I need to go full force on this. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. And I was able to reach more people through sharing that story and not going viral. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I like the way you put it, because it's very much like you knew this was your act of service and it didn't matter because people can think what they want, but you knew the potential of how many people you could help and impact. And I think that's very relative to like what we try and do here is like, I know that I'm not like, I don't know it all. He doesn't know it all. I sure hope you don't know it all. Like we don't want to sit down with anybody that does, but you have your own things that you learn. And like that's real to you. That's so real to you. So you need to be able to believe in it and put it out there, because there's somebody else that has something similar. It might not be exactly the same, but like maybe they don't believe in it yet, but then they see you believing in it and it's just like, okay, let me take this chance. Like, let me move forward. And I'm sure like that's exactly what you guys try and do when you're coaching these clients into like, you have to believe in yourself first.
I've been able to utilize affiliate marketing really, really well. So every time I work with a client, you're going to probably see me pictured with that client. You're going to probably see, a behind the scenes piece of content related to working with that client. And it's multi-purpose. So do I want my client's fan base to see me? Yes. Do I want my followers to see this really cool thing that we did? Yes. So I guess it's like, it's serving to myself and the client. I've just been able to optimize it. A lot of videographers like hide behind the camera. So like you'll see like the work of a videographer or like a content creator type of individual, and it'll just be like pictures of their clients. And then that's the fastest way to fail at developing a personal brand. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like one of the things with, in particular, content creation, but I think it applies to kind of any type of thing where there's a journey in terms of getting better at something, or is that oftentimes you're always thinking about the people who are like ahead of you, or like trying to impress the people who you believe to be like better, whatever it is, like whether it's more money, more followers, more views, whatever it might be. And that oftentimes you don't necessarily, like the example that I would make is that like a lot of times we catch ourselves comparing our podcast to, Rich Roll or somebody who's huge.
Diary of a CEO.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Diary of a CEO, whatever it might be. But you have to bring yourself back to, and I don't want to say like people who aren't as far along as you, but like people who are just starting their journey. That it's like, we may feel like, I wake up some days and I'm like, this podcast has done nothing. But then I remember that like maybe if I go out there and I do this podcast with Bryce or with whoever the next guest is going to be, that'll inspire somebody to create theirs. Mm-hmm. And they would look at me and say, wow, they've almost for 2 years have been at a podcast. And then we look at something like, you've had a studio and this content creation thing for 4 years. You know what I mean? Bringing it back to, it's not all about getting to a point where you're in the same league as somebody else. It's about like inspiring somebody else and having that intent to be like, yeah, like I may not feel like my story is unique, but I only think that because I'm in my body 24/7 and I can't get out of it.
Yeah. Everyone's unique story is, empowering and potentially the way you tell it. There is a balance to clout, is it self-serving or is it, helping others, right? I don't know. It's complicated, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, 'cause when everyone's out there just chasing followers and likes and, look, it's really easy to see, when people are full of shit online, I mean, look, if you see someone and you see that they have 500,000 followers and you're like, I don't know if that's real. Just go over to their reels and look at the view counts on it. If they have 500,000 followers and their reels are all 2,000-3,000 views, it's fake. They bought their followers. There's a really cool way to kind of like, there's the right and the wrong way to buy followers if you think about it. Trial reels on Instagram is huge. I just had another video hit 1 million today for my interview with an addiction medicine physician. We're talking about the effects of alcohol. But so number one, you got to have great story. We've talked about that quite a bit. But number two, like you got to utilize the distribution platform. So if you're using Instagram, like drop your clips on trial reels and just like let them cook and then see which one works. And Instagram will actually notify you and say, hey, that's the one, that one's doing really well. You should share it to everyone because trial reels just shares it to people who don't already follow you. I was able to get, have my second clip do more than 1 million just like in the last 30 days. Like once you have a video pop and it does good organically, then you could instead of like buying bots and fake followers for your account, you can actually sponsor that post that already did good organically, and then people are going to follow you from that. So that's like a hack that I've been, that's like an influencer growth hack strategy that is pretty good for people to use. Yeah.
As soon as we came in the studio, you and I kind of connected over the fact that I'm an overthinker. You are too. And I would say that that's a pretty common thing in the business that we're in, whether it's videography or content creation, whatever it might be. What do you do on a daily basis or just in general on those days where like I said, I mean, we've all made mistakes. We've all forgot to put the card in the camera or forgot to change the battery or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
How do you kind of balance the overthinking and tell yourself that hey, just because I made a mistake before doesn't mean that I'll continue to make that mistake over and over again, and that thinking about it continuously isn't going to help solve the problem that's in front of me in the present moment?
Yeah, thinking about a problem continuously is definitely not going to help solve the problem in front of me. I like to think
we do it all the time, right?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I feel like I'm kind of like, I don't know if I don't really, I know we talked about whether focusing on a thought, deciding whether or not it's negative or positive. I don't know. I kind of have now convinced myself to believe that, number one, there's nothing that bad that's going to really happen if I make a mistake. And number two, I'm kind of in this next phase, which is just this kind of paranoia, which we talked about earlier. The only thing I'm making a mistake on is being too slow. I'm not even gonna there's really no way to make a mistake. But if there's an error with the tech and something fails, that makes my heart stop. I did a podcast recording with Ulster Bosse's. I work with the superintendent of Ulster Bosse's, Dr. Jonah Shanker. That's my guy. But we co-created his podcast, and so we're sitting there for the hour, and we got all these teachers, and they're all like doctor teachers. You know how some teachers are teachers and some are like doctors. So we're around all these doctor teachers, and they're recording a podcast, and then they wrapped. You can sense in the room when the podcast recording was coming to a close. So then me and Sean make our way over to the gear, and we're about to shut everything, lock in those recordings on the cameras and the audio, and I go to and I kill the recording on the audio deck. And it's just spinning and spinning and spinning, and it's not doing the thing where it's complete, and I'm and my heart just dropped into my balls.
That's low.
All the way down there. And I was like, fuck. And we had lost I thought we lost the entire recording. We had lost the last 20 minutes of the recording. So yeah, tech fails. I had to smile through the photo op after that and just like act like everything was okay. And we ended up salvaging the materials. So yeah, in the content creation agency, like content creation industry, tech fails quite a bit, and that's an issue that I feel responsible for. So how do I combat that? I don't know, man. Just like trying to like cover my bases. But yeah, I'm really just like. I feel like once entrepreneurs can get past the point of fear of failure, then they can really start to succeed. Yeah.
How does that kind of philosophy apply to you in like your personal life? What does like overthinking and things like that? Because like maybe in business, it's a little bit more kind of black and white or cut and dry. How do you deal with overthinking a personal relationship or beating yourself up? Maybe like what does that look like for you, and how do you kind of have that approach from business and try to apply that?
Yeah. How does the fear of failure apply to my personal life?
Because there's all kinds of ways that you can fail, right? It's not just like the camera, shit in the bed, okay. Right? Like, or there's all, what I should say is that there's all sorts of ways that you can feel like a failure, even though you necessarily aren't.
JP, why are you coming for me right now, bro?
Who thought we'd be here, man?
I guess I could say that the way that I try to avoid the fear of failure is by just like working so obsessively that there is not much of a personal life. So I guess I just avoid it. I don't know.
We'll come back to that one in a couple of years.
Well, look,
at least you're honest, man. You don't have,
There's family for me is huge. Family for me is huge. I got my dog Benji. He's a big part of my life, and friends. But friends become creative-ish relationships. Like for me, I work on a lot of like creative pursuits with people around me, and then those people become my friends. And I have some. Friends that I have friends that I don't work with? That's an interesting thought. Not really. Not really. Yeah, we're getting to some core here, guys. Really.
But I mean, I feel like that's not something to be ashamed of, because you want to grow as a person, and to grow as a person, you need to surround yourself with the people that you want to be like or grow up with,
Yeah.
So I feel like to kind of narrow that down, like, it doesn't really matter if they're friends from business or friends because you guys went to high school together, like the core relationships, the ones that like are impactful in our lives are the ones where we were building something, where we were growing with another person or growing as a group, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I mean, don't be so, it doesn't have to, don't make it a negative thought, you know what I mean?
Oh my God. If people, it's the fact that it's just us here right now and no one else is in the room, everyone else is working elsewhere, that there's like this, I definitely feel the therapeutics of this podcast that you guys put on, it's you came to me at an interesting time in life, boys.
Same. I think we would say the same.
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
It's like divine timing or something. Yeah, it's hard, man. Like everyone in my world knows that my world is consumed by this, where you're at right now in this studio, and it's a gift and a curse. So, I guess that I could say that I always just put stock back on my operational entrepreneurial skill to kind of be a foundation for like everything else will follow, which is difficult. So like, listen, like, people know that I'm obsessed with work.
Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting thing. I was reading something the other day that was about how we love, or we spread love through the people in our lives for who they are, not for what they do. You know what I mean? You're my best friend because of who you are. You're not my best friend because we have a podcast together or whatever else it is. But oftentimes then when we look at ourselves, we can only love ourselves for what we do versus like who we are at a core.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like you've just, you've kind of already answered that question. But are you taking any like steps right now to kind of like bridge that gap of, because obviously, you know, you're a smart guy. You're more than just the podcast studio and being a podcaster and a content creator.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like with like the identity of yourself? Like, how else do you see yourself besides being this?
Yeah, man. Listen, I am very loving, and you know, I'm very close to my family. How else do I see myself besides this? You know, this is an interesting point. I'm about to spin it back to content creation.
Go for it, man.
No, but like, listen, like you see people,
okay,
you walk in here and you're like, Bryce, you have a really like, you're building a really strong personal brand. Well,
Yeah.
I put myself out there a ton, but like, you know, there's also like oh, you guys are getting me, man. Yeah, I don't know.
It may
I guess
be our first time at a studio, but we've asked people a lot of questions.
I guess I don't necessarily put my personal life out there that much, in the sense that I can like kind of like avoid it by like going so heavy on like my business and life and lifestyle. But like, it brings up a good point, because like creators that you see, like what they're putting out there doesn't always necessarily represent their actual personal identity.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I'm at, man.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, absolutely.
So listen, I guess I can say that inside, you're asking me, what am I doing to work on myself outside of business, right?
Yeah, and yeah, that's one way of putting it. Yeah, for sure. Or what, just kind of like what micro steps are you taking in that way? Because I think in a lot of ways, that is working on yourself for sure.
How are you growing right now?
Yeah,
I think is what he's trying to get.
Yeah. Drinking water, eating properly. Listen, for a long time, actually forever, I don't eat. It's all caffeine and nicotine. I eat at 6 o'clock at night. And I didn't really work out that much. I started to work out more recently since I met my girlfriend, and my one of my partners, Zach, he's big into working out. So working out has been something that was good for me. And I'm focusing on growing by eating, drinking water.
Those are all huge, important things, though. And
absolutely.
like, it's those little steps that add up over time. Like, you can just do like the little minute thing and still go back to grinding. And like, if you add that up over weeks and months, like, look where you're at. You still have all of the work success, but now you've also just allocated that time to work on yourself, whether it's just taking care of your body with drinking water and like eating healthier and like working out a little bit, or whatever it might be for yourself. Just that time though, because it seems like we're a little bit lost in like how much focus we're putting into the work and the content and how we can create and change and revolutionize everything. But like, just the fact that you're doing that with taking care of yourself a little bit, that's going to add up to the point where one day you'll look back and be like, at the same time that I built this empire, I also changed into the best version of myself, growing and becoming like the best version of yourself, you know? Like,
this is interesting, man. It really is, you know? Do you ever feel like people kind of like,
you want to throw some questions at us?
Yeah.
I was gonna get us.
Yeah, I want to get you guys.
Well, I'll get open.
Well, so you have a baby on the way.
Yes.
If you guys had like pods that were like completely about that so far, have you really unpacked your potential upcoming fatherhood?
So we've touched on it little by little. So this is get into the podcast a little bit. Me and JP personally have been trying to like get back on track with this, because when me and Desiree did find out that we were having the baby, we didn't tell anybody, and he knew maybe like I told you in the beginning of February, I think, and we found out in December that we were having a baby.
No, I think that
I told you in January.
The episode came out in February,
but I told you in January.
Exactly,
so we still like.
I had to keep the secret too.
There was a whole month that he didn't know, and we were still trying to record, and I can't say anything. And then we got to the point where we went to the doctor for the big appointment. We got to see the baby. Everything was good. And she was like, you can tell him now. So we sat down to record at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then bullshitted.
Later than that. I think it was like 4
It's because we bullshitted all day though when we actually podcasted, and the whole time he was like, "You sure you want to do this today?" And I had like a notepad written down, like telling him. So like, I unpacked it that way on him. I kind of just like the episode's out there. We just threw it down, but it was very spur of the moment, so we didn't get into like a lot of the big conversations about it. But
so let me ask you this, Steven. You have a baby coming. How do you feel about like you're never ready until it's here, right?
So I mean, it's kind of like I said when we sat down with you, is like I believe everything kind of happens the way they were supposed to happen, and like it's crazy because now I tell him all the time, like the first time I hold the baby, like I can't wait to hold the baby and just be jacked like on that skin to skin content, because
you can have your shirt off in the
100%, like because for so long, like I didn't realize I feel like you never realize that you are ready is the problem a lot of people have. It's not that you're never ready. It's just like you don't realize that you are. So I got sober 2 years ago. I lost 70 pounds. I got into the best shape of my life. I changed my career. I met the best person I've ever met, and now we're having a baby. And I feel like honestly, the timing is perfect because I'm not the piece of shit that I was 2 years ago. You know, like I might not be as far along as I'd like to be sometimes, but I've come so far that like, I know like I'm ready for this, you know? It's not a matter of like, you'll know when you know. It's just kind of like, you're not going to know that you are ready. It's just going to happen. And then you have to accept that and be able to, navigate.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, well, I didn't realize you lost 70 pounds.
Yeah, man, I was like 230. It's all that fucking tequila.
Wow.
I drank like
they
a
say
fish,
it's the healthiest of the alcohols, but if you drink so much of it,
the healthiest of the alcohol.
You want to get into war stories about drinking? I got quite a few.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
it's all natural sugar, right? That's the lie they tell you.
I just want to say, congratulations to you and Desiree.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Are you having a boy or a girl?
We're having a girl.
Do you know her name yet?
Yes, we do, but we're not sharing that publicly yet.
It's a secret.
The baby shower is June 1st. She'll announce it there.
Nice.
I can't announce anything without Desiree's permission.
Yeah, of course.
She signs off on all social media.
I love it, man.
Yeah, but for me especially, like this, I think from the outside looking in, a podcast may not seem like, oh, it's not that serious, or it's not that big a deal, or whatever it might be. But for me, that was very meaningful, and it made this podcast even more meaningful for me, that like this was enough of a thing between the two of us that you wanted to tell me on the podcast, and that we could like
clicks.
Yeah, exactly. But it's another, that brings it back to like what we were talking about earlier, which is that like, oh, is it selfish to show like my genuine reaction to him telling me that he's having a baby? And it's just like, well, why can't it just be about like us sharing a moment? It doesn't have to be about the fact that like, oh, people need to see this. Yeah. But that was really special for me when you did that. Yeah,
I love it. I love it. What about you, JP? Tell me something. Tell me something good,
man. I mean, yeah, if we're gonna get vulnerable, like what I'm dealing with right now is trying to get, it's funny. I said something to. We had a really good conversation on the way up here just about this, because this is a big moment for us. Doing this, really like the first step in us, like really taking this seriously, doing a podcast in a studio. But what I said was, a lot of times, like I was showing up here and being like, they're going to know more than I am. I oftentimes worry, like I mentioned earlier, the comparison thing of that. It's just like, you're always worried about the people who are further along, right? You know what I mean? And you said something to me that was like, oh, you're probably way more of like a camera scientist than I am. And I was like, and like in my head, I'm just like, dude, like I'm just getting started on this, and I feel like an amateur like every single day. And I think what I'm trying to work on right now is being comfortable with what I offer and what I bring to the table. But then also being very open with the fact that there's stuff that I can learn from people like you, anybody who works in this studio, and anybody that we come into contact with, and just trying to work on what's my journey right now. What can I learn versus being like, I need to know more than this person, or I need to get more views than this podcast, or whatever it might be. And that's oftentimes, I think, where a lot of people find themselves when you go from, oh, I like to do this for fun, to I do this for a living. Excuse me. And I have to take this more seriously. So that means that I'm in competition with somebody else. And that's totally not the case. You know, I go back and forth with those things because I know that that's like my lower self talking. That it's like, it's not a competition that like, oh, this podcast looks better than mine, or this person has more knowledge than me, or this person has a nicer camera, or whatever it might be. And that you're valuable as just, it's not just what you do. Like, you are valid as who you are. And that person can be learning one day, that person can be educating another day, and you can be doing another day.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. You know,
we open up pretty easily. I feel like,
we did skip that with you. Normally we we'll have like a very like open moment at the beginning of the podcast, or even like when we're just talking in the room, because then it just opens like you said, it's different when there's nobody in here. I'm sure it'd be different if there was people like watching us right now. I don't know if me and him would be as open as we are, but that's perspective, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like we normally tell something like that because if we get open and vulnerable, then it just allows you to like be like naturally yourself. Because then you can be like, well, if these guys don't fucking care what somebody thinks about them, like,
there's
let me say my truth.
There's episodes of this, especially in the beginning, of both of us just like crying.
Yeah,
in episodes.
Like it happens. It is what it is.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And in the beginning, that was so terrifying. That was like a lot. And like, I still like say that, like, you know, you hear about the people who were like, oh, what, did you open up your camera so that like you could cry on camera or whatever it was? And just like, no, I'm having a vulnerable, we did like a kind of like a series in the beginning where we interviewed each other. And like,
smart.
And like, I interviewed him first.
I came for
so I interviewed him first, and he learned a lot from that, and then weaponized that against me. And it was a lot, but it was very cathartic for me. And
it definitely set the bar for what this podcast was going to be moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that you make a good point about that. It's just like our podcast can be something different than what other people is. And then like a couple months later, that clip goes viral of Theo Von and the UFC fighter. You know what I'm talking about?
No, which one?
There's a clip where they're like having a vulnerable conversation about like mental health or whatever.
He like asked him, like, the UFC fighter, like, about like what was the trauma in your life?
Yeah,
and it's just like viral because like you got the.
But he's like crying, and he basically tells him like I can just sit here with you, man. Like it's all good, and it's like it's just like, oh, okay, well, like if this, you know, what most people would say is like the definition of masculinity, like a UFC fighter who beats the fuck out of people for a living. And he can also be multidimensional and have emotions and feelings. And even like nobody was commenting on that video being like, oh, did you guys do this for clickbait? But then when we do it, it's like, you think to yourself like, oh, am I like, is this a safe space to do that?
Right.
And I think that's what I love the most about what we've done. Is the fact that like we're not just here to ask you how do you go viral, or how do you build your personal brand, or how do I get more views, or how do I start a studio, how do I get better at videography, or whatever it is. That like I think so much of what people do for a living and what you think of yourself is so interconnected, and all of us are so like caught up in our egos of how is this going to make me look, or how is someone going to judge me, that we forget that like the most vulnerable moments of this podcast are kind of what the foundation is. and I really can't think of another thing like that has impacted me in terms of like wanting to be better and wanting to share what I'm doing than doing this. And I could understand how some people might see a podcast as a very surface level thing, but that's not what me and him do this for.
Yeah, so that's our why. Our why is is to make everybody feel like you're not alone in this. There's other people that are going through your experience, and then when we have a guest, to pull as much insight about life and like whether it's your career or the personal struggles that you've been through, and give that information to our audience.
Okay, understood. So I guess what I could say relating to I think we mentioned fear of failure. When I thought I was going to be a famous rapper, but at the same time, like I was self-sabotaging, using drugs and, ruining relationships around me, like we talked about in the beginning. And, but there was a time when I was putting myself out there online, because like a lot of like amateur artists, rappers, they put their content on SoundCloud, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, right? So, people in my world always knew that that's what I was doing. I put my first album out on iTunes when I was 16. I rapped on stage at prom in high school.
Wow, that's dope.
Yeah,
what a kind of that's a baller move, bro.
Where did you go to high school?
Confidence level.
Arlington High School, yeah. But like, I was never like the illest rapper in my rap group, But like I worked so hard to be good, and I started off really bad. And there's like clips out there of me saying like recently, like I was a wannabe rapper, and I was, because like I never blew up. But like also like I think I had such a drive in me to prove to other people that I was capable of being great. And it's funny how it materialized into what I do today. But I really just wanted to like I guess if I was to get vulnerable about it, I wanted to prove to those around me that I could, make it, to my dad, right? To my mom. I wanted my mom to see that I'm successful. I wanted all the people from my younger years to, believe in me too. And, a lot of times it takes that external validation, for ourselves to feel whole, or what is making it, right? So, the fact that I ended up finding a level of it, and people could perceive that I have achieved a level of success, which we have, but, I still am driven by that fear of failure and reaching that kind of like ultimate success. So although I am able to acquire that external validation from, people of a certain level of fame and celebrity that recognize that the work that we do here is really great, I'm still in a constant pursuit of, proving people wrong, for the people. I guess maybe there's a voice inside me that says like, wow, like those people laughed at me, or those people didn't think I was good. And now it's undeniable, so there's a little bit like ego in there, but it's also fear. It's very fear driven for me. So, when I sabotaged myself for so long, I sort of have this like voice in the back of my head that says, hey, like, what if you didn't do that? Would you be like 20 times more successful, 20 times the amount of money and, and whatever it is, fame or whatever, but I'm basically driven every single day to just prove to people that I'm capable. So that's kind of the core of my being in my personal why, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that does 100%. I mean, I feel that too. Like we all go through those things that are like you started rapping when you're 16. So I'm sure like you're in that I feel like that age from like 12 to like 17. I feel like when you're when you're a senior in high school, you no longer give a fuck because you're about to like go away to college and just like party. Yeah. But that from 12 to 17 is just so vulnerable, because like me and him were friends, and like there's people that we were like very close with, and like you think everything that those people say means everything, and nothing else matters. And sometimes as you grow, you'll realize that like what their opinion was didn't matter, but it's still lingering there. And then you feel it, because I tell him all the time, there's 2 kids that we went to junior high with that I can remember what they picked on me for and why they did it. And like, it got under my skin and it's still with me today. Like there's still sometimes where I'm just like, why are you letting this fucking bother you 15 years later? You know, like you've come so far and done so much, but like, I feel that too, that like that fear of we all have greatness inside of us. And I think the thing that drives most people, especially when it's fear driven, is like, you know, you're great. Like you weren't put here to not do something that mattered. And it's just like a matter of aligning yourself with doing those things. And then as you accomplish them, you realize that like, I've been on track this whole fucking time. Everything, every bump in the road, every misstep, that was all supposed to happen. And not for nothing, like that's what a hero's journey is. Every story is that. Like you can't be truly great if you just come out and like everything you do is good. Like think about it. Even Hercules, like grew like the perfect God, but had to be living with humans and just struggling to just be like, why am I so out of place here to find your real purpose, you know?
That's 2 episodes in a row that Greek mythology came up for us.
I love the hero's journey. I think it's interesting that you bring it up.
And Billy, on what you said, that I think we all kind of like factor that in. And for some people, it ignites them and pushes them towards this thing. I know personally that I struggle with that because I remember being like the best way, you know, we throw this around, but like I remember being a piece of shit and not working on myself whatsoever. But then I was like successful as a bartender, right? And then now what it looks like more to me is that I take the time to work on myself. I'm trying to personally grow, but I'm far less successful, not only in a career, but also in like relationships or things like that might not be in the place that you want them to be. And it's interesting because I try to balance those things, but it seems like a lot of what happens is when you're working on your career, I'm tracking back to like, well, you need to work on yourself too, because money and success is going to make you happy. And then when I'm working on myself, I beat myself up about you're not making money right now. You're not growing your business. You're not emailing that person back or making that invoice or whatever it is. And I think it's all a balance of like learning. You know, all 3 of us have different ways of approaching these problems. But I think it's interesting to think about, well, why, when I think about my career, do I think about the kid from high school? But then when I look at my personal life, like you don't know what people are doing behind the scenes of that. And that like really any comparison that you're making is all perception or your opinion of it. It's not necessarily the truth. I'm curious how you deal with like that imposter syndrome, because like from the outside looking in, you have a successful studio, you've got a bunch of clients, you've worked with celebrities. What more could you want? As someone who thinks that like, oh, I'm just one retainer or client away from thinking that I'm real at this. But then I hear you saying that like, yeah, that doesn't necessarily answer the problem. You know, but I think that's there's a level to that all the way to the top of people who have millions of dollars who will tell you the exact same thing, that it's just like, it didn't solve my imposter syndrome or my self-worth or whatever it might be. What's your take on that in terms of, because like as somebody who I've mentioned it on the podcast a lot, it's just like you know, I think we all to some degree kind of compare ourselves to what other people are doing, especially in the age of the personal brand and social media being so big. How do you kind of like be content with what you're doing right now, still have the drive to move forward, but also know that, like the next, you know, going from 6 to 7 figures is obviously like a huge jump, but it's not necessarily going to answer everything. And there's always another, like new levels, new devils, right?
Yeah. So okay, in relation to what you're saying, relating to the imposter syndrome and like every level there's another devil, you know, it makes me think of the first public speaking class I ever took in college. You know, I was always afraid of what other people thought about me. You know, and I think that it's interesting that we find that the things that we're not great at tend to become our superpower. I think that's, you know, like I'll throw Daymond John into it. Like he's dyslexic and then he became a public speaker, you know, a world-renowned public speaker. So anyway, my first public speaking class, you know, I had an instructor, Mr. Adams, that was like really, really cool. We connected, him and I. And, you know, a couple classes in, I went to him and I was like, listen, like, I feel like everyone in this room like knows each other, and I feel like I'm out of place, and I feel like, you know, I feel intimidated to speak out in front of these other students. And he's like, I'll never forget this. He's like, Bryce, you know, you feel intimidated by them, but the truth is that they're intimidated by you. And that was like a pivotal mindset switch for me, was understanding that it's so simple, but like other people are so insecure about themselves that they're not judging you. Right. So, so anyway, I was able to kind of take that mindset and move with it. You know, so in a way, being able to, you know, like walk around and say like, yeah, like, you know, I'm really great at having these kind of one-to-one consultation, like conversations with a potential client, or like I'm getting really good in the podcast atmosphere, being able to share my story, is all because I thought I wasn't, right?
Oh, okay. Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it was
Yeah.
like I go around, like I'll say like I studied journalism at college. Like I'm a really great writer, storytelling, but like in second grade, in the back of my mind is in second grade when like they made me stay after for like the whole year because I was bad at writing, you know, and they made me do extra writing classes. So, you know, I guess all of it, whether it's like reaching the next level and feeling like I've arrived, or feeling complete or whole, or, you know, being content with myself, you know, once I'm able to look within and say, okay, like, yeah, like, you know, I conquered that fear. I was able to succeed through that insecurity. That I guess that's when I'll be able to say like I'm truly successful, is when I, you know, or maybe, you know what, essentially I am, because I've been able to, you know, break through that boundary in a sense, right? It's not about the material things and how much money's in my bank account and who's the next celebrity that I'm working with. It's really about like, okay, cool. Like I was able to really like, you know, overcome those personal struggles in that way. That's how I feel about it. Yeah. Do you guys, you know, you brought up like people picking on you and stuff when you were young, like those things pop in my head too, all the time. You know, I was around like people, I was like, in seventh grade, I went into the bathroom at LMS, and I remember my friend popped in the bathroom too, and like he asked me if we were gonna do coke that weekend, or like, you know, a ninth grade before a football game, like I was at my buddy's house and everyone was smoking PCP. Like, I ended up taking my good friend's girlfriend to senior prom because he went to jail for like using and distributing pills. So that stuff was all around me. And, you know, it wasn't a long time until, you know, I fell afflicted to that stuff. But, you know, when I remember when I was like young, like I must have been in like fourth grade, my buddy came over and like we were hanging out and having like a sleepover, and he went in the fridge at my mom's house, and like pulled out the whipped cream can. And this is like when I'm at the age when we're about to like, I thought we were gonna like watch a movie and eat ice cream, and he just like whip it, huffed the whole whipped cream can. And like that was the same kid who like used to really pick on me too. Like it was the closest people to me that would also like, you know, be bullies, right?
Yeah.
So in a sense, I guess I always was trying to prove myself to be cool, you know? Yeah,
For sure.
Those thoughts pop in all the time.
100%.
Yeah.
Dude, there was a moment at the very beginning of this podcast. I've become a very big reader as I've gotten older, and I can pinpoint exactly why. Because in second grade, I was called on to read, and I'll never forget pronouncing island as island, and everybody erupting in the classroom. And like I did it, I never opened my mouth one more time, like in elementary school, and that sticks with you. But like as I've gotten older, like I'll read a fucking 5-page excerpt on the podcast, and JP will be like, "Are you done yet?" But I'll sit there and read the whole thing because you know what, like,
but also remember,
fuck it, I'm not that kid anymore, and that kid can read.
When you were saying, "Are you done yet?" That was the voice in your head, not me. You know what I mean? Like we all like project those things that like, that's what they're thinking. That must be what they're thinking. Like, oh, I'm reading something right now. Like, they must be thinking, like, am I done yet?
Yeah.
Like, and
right? It all comes back to those moments,
right?
man.
Right? Like, but like, never once, was I ever actually being like, will this dude shut the fuck up so we can actually podcast?
Yeah.
Of course not. But like, those things come back. And I think it's interesting how like we create all these narratives about ourselves and about the situations that we're in, because of how we perceived things from that age, especially.
One of my big things in like personal development has been like when I'll like do like a dosage of mushrooms, and let's think of something that has been bothering me for a really long time, and let's think of that moment, and then let's unwrap the narrative that we built around that one particular moment. For a lot of people, like you can have like somebody picks on you and you create an entire narrative on why that happened, why it shouldn't have happened, why like you aren't what they said you were, why you are what they said you are, and you wrap this whole narrative around it, and it continues to grow. Because that's the thing, like when you start telling yourself something, if you don't stop telling yourself something, it just stays there and it just keeps going, and it becomes a subconscious thing. And a lot of us don't realize that, like, you might feel like you have so much anxiety right now about talking in public, but really you don't. You just need to tell the 8-year-old version of yourself in the mirror, like, hey man, it's okay that like you were bad at talking in front of groups of people when you were in second grade. Like, you're a grown man now. You've come a long way. Like, just let that go.
Yeah. It's you can, by telling yourself that negative self-talk, like, it really, you're manifesting that, right? You're creating it for yourself. So, I completely agree.
Yeah. I'm curious to ask you, because you said something about, you think people like were kind of judging you, like if you were cool or not.
Oh yeah.
So I'm curious now with what you do and just kind of how you live your life now, like what does being cool mean to you now? Because obviously that definition has changed.
Yeah.
What is, like, and I don't mean it in the sense of like leather jacket wearing cool. I mean it in the sense that, are they cool now? I don't know.
I got my dad's Harley leather jacket that I wear sometimes.
Oh, okay. All right. So besides the jacket, then what do you define as like cool? Because like what I feel like what we decide as cool is like being vulnerable, or like taking the risk of posting that thing that you're scared to do.
Yeah.
Like how has like that definition changed for you? What do you like consider, like when you think, oh, that person's cool, you don't think of it in the sense of like the Fonz. You think of it in the sense of like, what is your definition of that?
What's my definition of cool? How do I feel cool? A lot of stock of cool for me gets put on. One of the coolest things that I do is I'm able to like have my family and friends come over and I cook for them, right, on the grill, and having everyone together and serving, right. But it's interesting because how am I going to answer that question by saying like something that I do? It was what makes me cool.
For me, like when I was younger, like cool, like I was a baseball player. I wanted cool to me was like you're a pro baseball player, you're an athlete, you have money, like you have the nice things, you can go to nice places and travel. And now as I've grown and like become more of myself, like cool to me is like on Saturdays we go over to my parents' house and like 5 o'clock we'll go to church, and then afterwards we're gonna hang out, and like we're just gonna have dinner at my parents' house, and like that time with family is cool to me, and like taking care of myself, like let me go to a yoga class, like let me stretch for an hour, like that's cool. Like I take care of myself, because that's something that I would have never put in that window when I was younger, and now as I've gotten older, like those are the things that matter most to me, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, like something that I would consider, like I don't drink anymore, so I don't hang out in bars so much anymore, but like every once in a while when I'm there, like I thought it was really cool because somebody brought up to me while I was at the bar, they were like, hey, I'm thinking about quitting drinking. And I think that that's cool to do that, but what I thought was even more cool is that they felt like I was somebody that they could talk to about that, and that they were vulnerable enough to open up about that. And so like I think of it in the sense of like what I would say about like if I'm 16 and I say, oh, like Bryce is really cool, what I would like how I would define that back then versus what I would say now about how like, yeah, you cook for your family, you run a successful business, like those things are so different.
Yeah.
Like now versus what they are then.
You know,
That like I don't even think that necessarily cool is the right word for it, because it has this connotation of how you appear to other people.
Yeah.
But I think we all know what I'm getting at. That
Yeah.
like what like I think it's yeah, like I said, I think it's cool that you do something for your family.
Yeah. It's interesting because everyone might perceive like in the TikTok universe, like what's cool. Right. And, you know, sometimes, you know, I will instruct content creators to speak to what might publicly be recognized as cool. Right. Like, so pulling up with the Ray-Bans on in a sick Mercedes Benz with a bad bitch, and you hop out the car and get on the private jet with, you know what I mean? And then having a martini with the ribeye steak, pan seared medium rare on both sides, staying at the sexiest hotel in that city. That's what is perceived as cool. You know, it's perceived as cool when I hopped in the, when I hopped in the Rolls Royce in the car elevator in Miami with Daymond John, and I asked him, I said, hey, you know, don't you think that the younger generation needs to see this stuff, the skyscraper in Miami, the car elevator, the Rolls Royce, the Lamborghini years? Don't the younger generation need to see this stuff so that they know who Daymond John is? And he said to me, I'll never forget this. He said, if you're the type of person that needs to be shown like the Rolls Royce, the Lamborghini, the flashy suits, the jets, the cars, then you're not the type of person that I want to, share with or like make an impact on, because, if you need that to, be motivated, then, you're missing the point on, what you need to find within yourself to, actually find like that true success. Yeah.
I mean, that's very interesting to me, coming from someone who's as successful as him,
Yeah.
that he would still have like the humility, to be like, yeah, like I don't necessarily want to connect with the people who measure me by the things I have or the things I'm superficially doing, at least.
Right.
You know?
Well, to me, I'm like, this is the coolest fucking thing I've ever done.
Exactly.
That's the coolest thing I've ever done.
But you probably learned something about yourself from him saying that too, which was that like, oh, I want to show this X, Y, and Z so that like people know that this is what you're about. And he was like, no, that's not necessarily how I measure myself. Like, it's nice to have nice things. By no means am I like hating.
Right.
But at the same time, I think probably hearing it from somebody at that level made you look differently, that like success can just be having an impact on one person.
Right.
It doesn't have to be like millions of views or having a nice car.
Well, it's
a million other ways people define it.
Yeah. So, okay. So there's a lot of that mix, right? And there's a balance, I think, because to be able to, reach people algorithmically, there has to be a level of some kind of clickbait, clout, clickability, right? To potentially go viral, to potentially share your message and help people. And it circles back to what we talked about at the beginning of this thing. So, because in our sphere, there's a lot of that, right? Whether it's Daymond John's Rolls Royce elevator or Anthony Serino's G-Wagon that he pulls up in and shoots a video in front of, or Sherry and Billy Schwick with their 5 Lamborghinis that we go film their podcast for. you know, they have that material thing, and then turn around and then provide some kind of value. So I think as a content creator, entrepreneur, you know, storyteller, having that balance is good, you know, and there's levels to it, right? Like if it's like starving artist syndrome, you know. There was certain, you know, friends of mine in the rap scene that like wouldn't want to like make the trap beat song, or like wouldn't want to like have a cool hook in between. It's just bars, like we're just spitting bars, because like we were really spitting back then. But like
full disclosure, like, well, we listened to a track.
You did? You did?
Well, you did.
He
right?
saw a Cypher.
Oh, you saw a Cypher?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
You know my buddy, his name's Brian Galligan from Iconical.
Oh yeah. Dirty, right?
Huh? No, Brandon Purdy was
No. Does he go by Dirty?
Yes, Dirty.
Yeah,
You
Dirty.
said Dirty, not Purdy.
Dirty.
Yes. Yeah. Fucking dirty, man. But he was like, yo, look up, like Bryce could spit back in the day. Look it up. And I was very impressed. I was very impressed.
Thank you, bro.
Mhm.
Yeah. Cyphers were fun. And that was actually the beginning of Q29.
There was the
we preferred bars too. We listened to Slaughterhouse, bro.
yeah. Oh, Slaughterhouse, bro. Royce the 5'9" is my favorite.
Yeah. We've seen Joe Budden a bazillion
For
times.
real?
Yeah.
Wow. That's fire.
But that was like, I feel like kind of what you're talking about is that like, we were like, no, I'm not going to listen to.
We were like that. I was
I'm
like,
trying to think of like who somebody was who was like popular.
Well, it'd be Drake. They'd be like, I don't fuck
Drake.
with
And I was like, nah, Joe Budden. Listen to Mood Music 4 if you want to hear about feelings.
Listen to Joel Ortiz. Like,
yo, that's crazy. So we could connect on a whole other pod about this. But yeah, like, so starving artists, they just want like, you know, hey, I am true to the culture. You know, I don't sell my soul, you know, but you're never going to reach anybody. So, you know, it's like this balance you have to find. It's like, well, do I want to sell out? Do I want to go pop so that then do I want to be J. Cole? Right? Do I want to like make the, you know, the pop record where Nas is hating on me for making it, you know, work out for me, right? Straight up. Tell me. And then, that's not even the song, is it?
Yeah, that is. You got it.
Work out for me, right?
Yeah, I think you got it right. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
So J. Cole makes that record, and then Nas hates on him for it. Nas is like the, you know, foundational hip hop kind of like native to the streets type of real rap boom bap dude. J. Cole sells out, but then J. Cole ends up being able to have the mass appeal and reception and put his shit out there as like a real backpack rapper. So, you know, who do you want to be? Do you want to actually reach people? So being able to utilize the flashy stuff to then, you know, break through that glass ceiling and then help people and provide real value or a mix of it. I think it's a balancing act.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious to ask you, because you're in this game, like, what do you think, you talk about like bringing value and that it's not all just in like the material possessions. I would say like for us, but just if you're starting like a podcast in general, what do you think is the best way to kind of provide value to people?
As a podcaster?
I mean, in general, but I guess for us, I'm asking as a podcaster.
What's the best way to provide value to your viewer
while staying authentic to what, you know, what we believe is like at the core of this, which is like helping people become their best selves.
What's the best way to provide value?
Without, like I said, like I think we catch ourselves sometimes worrying about views and downloads and how many people saw this clip or who's the next big guest that we're going to get or whatever it might be. But I think that, you know, we provided a lot of value to people on your parents' back deck and in my living room and beyond that.
It doesn't matter where you're at. Like you don't have to be in a studio, 1000%. But I think it's about, you know, thingifying the talking points, right? So I think that's how you can provide value, because you can't just be ignorant to, and I'm speaking to the general podcaster, you can't be ignorant to the way that people consume, the consumptionization of our generation, right? So thingifying the talking points, making sure that they're populated with keyword language. Like imagine that your 30-second reel is fucking SEO, right? You need to be able to crack algorithmically so that people can see it. I'm not saying to be inauthentic to yourself. I'm saying I think it takes a lot of writing. So to be able, what's the best way to provide value? To really plot out like in an outline format, like what we're gonna say, or even like afterwards, like, hey, we just recorded that hour. Okay, what were those key points? Now, what's the best hook for that? Verbalizing the language is the way that you're going to crack the algorithm, which will then help you get in front of more people, which will then help you be able to provide value. And like, no one's going to listen to the full hour unless they found you through a short in the beginning, right? Mm-hmm. Like usually.
Absolutely.
Unless they know you personally. Mm-hmm. So really thingifying it and like coining language is like the secret sauce, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I know I just gave you kind of like a practical way, but that's just like where my head is at. It's where I live at is like, I have people come in and they do SoPro sessions, content creation sessions, where it could be a podcast format, could be straight to camera. So I'll have them like discuss a talking point that there is like related to their expertise, like their niche. So whether they're a realtor, they're a gym owner, they're a public speaker, they're an author, a lawyer, doctor, whatever. So we come up with these creative ideas and they explain the topic. So, but then after they explain the topic, then we try to find like the hook. And it's not traditional hook writing in the sense where like, now I just want to find like the best initial start point that will clickbait the talking point, so to speak. So it's not about being inauthentic. It's about, populating the language. Let me give you an example. And we could workshop this for fun if you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So
I think it's interesting that you brought up clickbait too, because it's just like, I was watching something the other day that said that like clickbait doesn't have to be a bad thing. You just like have to find the thing that people want to talk about, or that people want to hear, or that people are looking for, solving a problem.
Right. So, okay. And let's do this for fun. This is fun. Okay. So clickbait talking points for hooks, for videos, for leads, for TikToks, for Instagrams, from podcasts. Okay. So I could say, let's say we're talking about using drugs and, being at rock bottom and then finding success, right? So I could say on a podcast, I could say, hey, I used to, use drugs and alcohol, and I was in a really dark spot. And then, I ended up becoming really successful, and I worked with some really cool people. There's that version. That's called out like version number 1. Then version number 2 is I could say, I was abusing drugs and alcohol and hit rock bottom, and I felt like I would never see the light of day, and the people around me started to give up on me. And then I ended up, creating my 6-figure business, and I had success, and it feels like it happened overnight, right? That could be maybe like level number 2. Basically level number 3 could be, hey, I used to wake up every morning and snort fentanyl like coffee until everyone around me abandoned me. And then that was the rock bottom that I needed to be able to, create this, creative studio, where then I went from doing that to being on a private jet with Shark Tank celebrity and podcasting on a private jet. So I'm saying like being able to populate the language in there and get real as fuck is going to be how you can ultimately share the most value. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. So 3 is the one that you
3 is the level. You gotta go 3.
Yeah. So like 1 is like beginner.
Yeah.
2 is like, you maybe have a few things figured out, but you're not there. But then 3 is the one that, and I would say that that's the one that connects the most personally, right? I would say that that's the one that's going to hit the most. Like, I don't have to have like snorted fentanyl to like feel for that and be able to relate that to the situations that I've been in. Like, it may have been something different for me, but
it's like you posted a clip very recently, and I think it's like brilliant because you're talking about Nike and like brands and stuff like that. That is a huge point. They just put out the new commercial yesterday during the Knicks game for the girl on the Aces. That commercial doesn't make you give a fuck about basketball or about shoes or about her jersey. That commercial makes you feel like she grinded from the fucking bottom and is now at the top of the game and is a world-class champion, and everybody appreciates the work that she put in.
Right.
And that's what Nike is selling you on. Do you want to be a champion, or do you want just nice shoes?
Yeah.
And there's the difference between going into it.
Yes. We're in this in the 30-day viral creator mastermind call that we have right now. that we're in the middle of. We start off with the whole mindset piece. So we're discovering like kind of like, you know, and in a hypnotic state, we're discovering the traumas that hold us back. And then what they don't know yet, the you know, participants of the call, is that then we're going to end up using those traumas to use it as like the foundational kind of I was here and now I'm there. So that personal struggle is going to be displayed through the content. So it's like the thing that is our mess becomes our message, right? So if people can just get past that and understand that the vulnerability is not about yourself, it's about how what someone can take that and use it to better themselves. That's when you crack the code on content creation and, you know, true authenticity. Right?
Yeah, it's like what Gary Vee says, you are the niche.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Gary V's goated. Yeah, Gary,
absolutely.
100%.
Gary V's the reason why I got, you know, multiple millions of views this month, because I followed some of his methods.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think has he ever steered anybody wrong in that realm? You know
Live shopping, hop on live shopping right now.
Right?
That's all he's talking about.
Facts.
Yeah, like the guy just he doesn't miss.
Yeah.
Facts.
He does not miss.
All right. I don't want to take up your entire day. We've been going for quite a while.
Yeah.
And so we want to leave you some room to talk about here in Q29, some of the stuff you guys are doing. If you want to just like what you guys offer, packages that could help somebody who's starting a podcast, a business owner that's trying to build their brand or market better. If you want to just do your promo.
Sure. Well, you know, like look, I'll say this. I've been able to weave it in and out of like the stories and things that I've shared. So that's kind of like the secret, is like, I don't need to necessarily have like an ad read. Well, hey, like, you know, at Q29, we're, you know, able to provide creators and entrepreneurs with content creation services, you know, to give them pro quality, focusing on storytelling, quality, whatever. I don't need to really do that because, you know, yes, do we have podcast pro tier programs for people to be able to kind of white glove service, press the button on their podcast production, be the talent and walk away from it? Yes. Do I provide those services? Yes. Could I say, okay, reels, podcasts, speaking events, sizzle reels. We make like a lot of sexy sizzle reels. That's pretty much like all that we do. For you know, TV celebrities, Olympic athletes, super influencers, and local entrepreneurs. So that's what we do every day. People can find out more information about us at Q29Productions.com. They can also get resources right now, podcasterclass.com. My podcast course is completely free right now for the 30-day viral creator mastermind. So it's just like open to people to use and to be able to, you know, launch their pod. It's like a 5-day launch plan. Like you can like, you know, from nothing, you can launch your podcast in 5 days. So I help people every day doing that. And, you know, people can always reach out. They know where to find me. We're located here in Hyde Park, right on Route 9 in Hyde Park. Beautiful content creation studio with podcast, set design, cyclorama wall. And thank you to my team for always being there and crushing this content. And thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. This has been fun.
Thank you for having us.
We do have one final question that we ask for all of our guests. So
you want me to?
Yeah, you got it. You've been doing it the last couple of days.
That's fair. So one question that we always ask people at the end, him and I are both, we're big fans of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And one of the things that we pulled from that is him and I both have certain people, or whether they're people that we know or like thought leaders, or it could even be like characters from movies, things like that.
Something you aspire to be like.
Yes, or you know, when you're going to make a decision, he talks about like building a council in your head of like whether, like I said, whether they're people in your life or people that you aspire to be like, who are like 3 to 5 people who you would say are on your council in your head when you're making a business decision, but not necessarily that. It could be a personal thing, or maybe you're at a crossroads for what to do next in your career or your personal life. Who are some people that you look towards, or that whether it's their actual opinion or kind of like what you think that they would do or recommend in a tough situation? Who are some of those people for you in your life?
My counsel in my head, huh?
Yeah.
Some of the highest level people that I've worked with and I take it from real life. I'm a sponge. It's my secret sauce. So my counsel that I go to in my head when I have to make a difficult decision is Zach Dingy, one of my best friends, and one of the first clients here at Q29. Anthony Serino, that's a co-creator of mine, TikTok's most famous hypnotist. He has really helped me formulate my kind of thought process related to strategy. Ali Krieger is someone who I work with closely, and she just handles everything with grace, and the way that I've been able to see her articulate herself in high pressure situations has been someone that I think of in times when I am on stage and in these kind of public speaking type situations. And last but not least, Daymond John from Shark Tank has been extremely foundational to my storytelling ability and the way that I build out certain business decisions. I definitely think of those people as my counsel internally.
Great answers.
Yeah.
All good answers.
I figured Daymond was going to be in there.
Yeah. We always know at least like one or two from the conversation you have with somebody. You can kind of pick up on like who they would go to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great counsel. And I think that like all of those people kind of offer different things in different situations.
And my mom.
Yeah.
Nice. Gotta throw mom in
my
there.
Mom is my mom is my best.
It's the
person.
week of Mother's Day.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. My mom really saved my life many times. So
really?
Yeah.
Do you want to touch on that a little bit before we go?
Yeah, I mean, no, my family has been there for me. Specifically, my mom is always my biggest supporter, believed in me when no one else did, empowered me throughout my life, and, helped me make the shift from, drugs to clean, which ultimately led to the success of this company. So, that's all from the support of my mom.
Wow, that's beautiful.
God bless, man.
Thanks, bro.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
My mom didn't know about my drug addiction until after I was clean.
Yeah, same.
Lucky. You're lucky.
Well, my mom probably knew, but we didn't speak about it until after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if I had told her, she probably could have helped me sooner. But,
Yeah. You live and you learn.
Hindsight is 20/20, right?
Yeah. I think my family is uniquely close, which wasn't always that way. But my sister is like basically runs this whole business too. So, and I'm lucky because I feel like I'll always have my sister, even though, even when we're older and in my 50s and 60s, like when, God forbid, but like when my mom isn't with us, right? I'll always have my sister there. So I'm really lucky in that regard.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for just the graciousness you had with us, like putting this together last minute and then jumping on the podcast last minute. Like, who thought we'd be here, Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you very much for kind of like going beyond the surface level.
Yeah.
And being willing to kind of like go deep in terms of like because that's kind of what our podcast is all about. Like we definitely wanted to come here and, gain some knowledge and give some insight to the people who follow us about your expertise. But we were also just interested in, how'd you get here and what's it like inside your head? And
the standards for your character were very high after the way you handled everything. So we were expecting to have a great conversation, and I can say that we definitely did.
Yeah, I even said to him yesterday, I was like, do you think we should confirm with Bryce? Do you think he really knows that he's going to be on the podcast? And then he was like, no, like he was so professional and so gracious about the fact that like helping us out that like, why would we need to? And sure enough, like when we got there was kind of like no question. That's
only
just like
person here.
That's just like the overthinking in your head,
Yeah.
But yeah, we very much appreciate your time and your knowledge. And I think that where we stand right now, this is the beginning of something like really special because this was a huge step for our podcast. We didn't really know what direction to go in. And it's scary to take the next step in anything.
You can look back. There's like 30 episodes where we just talk about we got to have a studio space.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it too is just like being able to like let go of it yourself and getting other people involved and trusting them to do what they do.
Yep.
because a lot of us have like this stranglehold on the things that we make, and that somehow it'll like lose its essence if you don't do it in your living room, or if you're not the one who's also running all the cameras or whatever it is.
Right.
And I think that this has opened up something for me for sure, since I run like the video. And
this
the
is
audio.
definitely the best he's ever been on a podcast, because he didn't have to worry about cameras, bro. 100%. You got the most present version of JP we've ever had on this podcast.
Listen, you heard it here first. Okay, this place makes you be your best podcasting self.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nah, that's dope, guys. JP, Steven, you guys are fucking awesome. And I'm happy to be a part of this thing. And let's blow this thing up. You know, we're doing it.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much, Bryce.
Thank you.
Q29, baby.